Hello everyone, and welcome back to my Forever Island honey cake. I'm Katabulous, your weird millennial aunt, social studies nerd, esoteric media lover, and purveyor of chill. And today on my island, we're going to be tackling a very big project. We are building Plucky's farm. Before we get into the video, I just want to give a huge thank you for all the likes and supportive comments you guys have left on the honey cake series. As of the last episode, the channel has grown past 500 subscribers, and I'm just so grateful. I honestly can't believe it. I love making these videos, and I'm happy to be able to share my island with you. The goal of my channel is to use gaming, cosplay, and media musings to spread joy and my passion for social emotional learning and social studies. If that resonates with you and you enjoy your time here, please consider subscribing. And if you could leave a like or a comment to boost the video, I'd really appreciate it. But let's get to work. So currently on Honey Cake, I've been completely overhauling the island for our spring cleaning initiative, and today we're going to be building a brand new farm. I've decided that our no-nonsense, down-home country girl sisterly villager Plucky is going to be the caretaker for the farm. I like to imagine she grew up on a farm, and she's gracious enough to share her agricultural know-how with Honey Cake. I've already moved Plucky's house back here, so first I need to decorate her yard and figure out how to have that transition to the farm behind it. I was a little worried that her house was too close to Butch's, but I think with some trial and error we can create a path between the two houses that will look natural. I'm gonna start by recreating the chicken coop that I had in her yard before. I get a nice little chuckle out of having a chicken who tends to chickens. I don't know, I'm a woman of simple joys. I played around with the items for quite a while, as I do, but for the most part, I ended up simply recreating the yard I originally made for Plucky. Hers was always the one I liked the best, so I don't really see much about it I need to change. While I build, though, I wanted to share some interesting things I learned recently from my latest library book, The Dorito Effect by Schatzker. One of the very first anecdotes in the book is actually about chickens, so it feels appropriate. So many things in this book made me realize how deeply complex food is, and how the 21st century poses really complicated challenges to our relationship with food and farming. It all just seemed to kind of go with the build for this island, and we even celebrated Earth Day recently. I don't know, it seemed thematically to vibe for me. Call it Kismet. Also, the footage is sped up here, but it's more or less my unedited building process. So there's a whole lot of backing up and staring at things and just thinking about them. It's the only way I know how to build. So I thought it would be fun and different to do a little more sharing/rambling to go along with this video. I do want to give a content warning for descriptions about eating, flavor, and industrial farming practices if anyone is sensitive to those topics. My island has always had a very loose 70s hippie commune theme. Even before I concocted my speedrun challenge, I had been steadily accumulating custom codes on a Pinterest board that I simply called Groovy Island. A lot of that comes purely from my love of the 70s aesthetics. If you've checked out my Twitch channel, you know that its theme is the Disco Lounge. But as I grew more attached to my Forever Island during the Year in the Life challenge, and especially recently, now that I've had more time to decorate and marinate on what a Forever Island playstyle looks like, I've started to refine and personalize that theme. The reason I'd been hesitant to give it too precise of a theme is because I don't want to be shackled to the tropes and constraints of any particular core, you know? I have a general conceptual and aesthetic vibe that's guiding me, but ultimately, because this is my Forever Island, I want it to represent all the things I care about, no matter how eccentric or unaesthetic those diverse interests might be. So while the groovy vibe will stay part of Honey Cake, it's gonna be less of a retro setting and more of a story about the kind of commune I would run if I could. This island isn't just for decorating, it's for playing. So yes, I want it to be pretty and visually satisfying, but I also want all the components of the island to mean something to me. Honey Cake is my little escape, my own imaginary world. I've always had sustainability and unlearning capitalism at the forefront of my vision, because in an imaginary world, I don't have to feel burdened by the obstacles of an oppressive reality. So obviously, community farming has been key to my vision for the island. I think a lot about how removed we are from the actual production of the food we eat, and how that can affect our relationship with food. And in the Dorito Effect, I learned so much more about the science of flavor and how our changing agricultural and food production patterns are impacting flavor. So, for example, chickens. Since the 1950s, the flavor profile of chicken has radically changed. Between 1946 and 1948, a grocery store chain worked in partnership with the U.S. Department of Agriculture to host the Chicken of Tomorrow contest. Farmers brought in eggs to hatch and raise under controlled conditions, and the winner was determined by the weight of edible meat it produced. The results of this contest were the beginning of large-scale broiler chicken breeding, chickens bred solely for meat consumption. As the decades went on, chicken farming was fine-tuned to become more efficient, favoring diets for chickens that would make them grow faster and bigger to be slaughtered younger. The practice is about producing more meat faster, not necessarily producing healthier or more flavorful meat. The result is a dilution in flavor and in nutritional content, and often pretty miserable conditions for the poultry. Don't worry though, all of Plucky's chickens are free-range sweetie babies. They get bubble baths and beachside strolls. So yeah, Plucky's yard ended up mostly looking like her old yard, and of course we love laundry on a rock, so she has a wooden plank path leading to her laundry spot. I thought it was a unique touch to use the oil barrel kettle bath thingy. You know, she's too much of a rustic country girly for an electric laundry situation. I could never, but she could. I'm still undecided about whether all this next to Butch's yard is too congested or cluttered, but I'll know more how I feel about that when I finish the farm behind and the path leading up to it. It just won't make sense to me until I spend time seeing it on the regular as it fits in with the flow of my daily play. Next, we're going to start on the farm area, and I want to start at the very back with the orchard. Once upon a time, I had so many fruit trees on this island, so that I could get the pick of the bunch Nook Mile achievement. But now we can scale down to something a little less intrusive, but still functional. I want my fruit trees to just kind of be in a nice orderly row at the very back. I want nice visibility and spacing for harvesting fruits when I need to. Like, I just want it to feel like a peaceful orchard fruit picking experience. And of course, that's going to take some experimentation because this game just loves to be particular when it comes to where you're allowed to put trees. So while we build the orchard, let's get back to chickens for a second. You may have heard the joke that everything tastes like chicken. And that's because chicken doesn't really taste like anything anymore. In the last 100 years, there has been a 500% increase in world spice consumption and a thriving billion-dollar industry in the creation and sale of flavoring components. Which means essentially that we need more spice, more seasoning, more added flavors to make our food taste good. When you buy raw cuts of chicken to cook for yourself at home, you aren't just buying plain chicken. The meat is processed and packaged in broth that includes various artificial flavors, because the chicken itself no longer has much natural flavor to it. Schatzker's book goes into great and engaging detail about all the varying factors that come into place to make food less naturally flavorful, and the industries that have grown around developing artificial and natural flavors to make food more delicious. It's actually kind of crazy, all of the weird and creative ways we've concocted flavorings to change our food. Like, the whole reason the Dorito exists was because someone was like, what if we could make a snack that tastes like a whole taco in one bite? Human creativity is wild. Now, once I was able to start putting down trees and see the vision of how the orchard was gonna go, it was time to dig up my temporary flower breeding spot. I've been desperately seeking purple windflowers for a while, so I can finally craft the garden stand DIY, but it hasn't happened for me yet. I've got to move these bad boys to the beach because I don't want them in storage because these are my special hybrid reds, and I don't want to get them mixed up with my other red windflowers. Flower breeding is a whole delicate thing, you see. But for the rest of these flowers and this temporary build I made back here, I called in Rossetti to get all of that out of the way. I do want to make a dedicated flower breeding build for the island, and we're calling that project the Honeycake Gardening Society for the lore. But I'm finally willing to admit that this corner back here is just not where my flower breeding belongs. So that's a project for another day. Since I had Rossetti for the whole day, I also went ahead and had him clean up all of these flowers on this cliff where my old orchard used to be. My plan for this whole second-tier cliff is to make it into a big outdoor school eventually. And potentially this is where the new gardening society could go. I'm still thinking through that one. I also have another little club for the island in mind, which is the Honeycake Critter Club. And the gameplay goal with that is to make models of all the bugs and fish in the game. But I do want to have an actual location and build to go along with the lore stuff for that, so that might go somewhere up here too. I already have a bit of an apiary going on, so I got totally sidetracked from my orchard while I played around with that and added some more pathing. And then I got double sidetracked because Olive invited me to her house and she's just too cute to turn down, and also I still need the Smile Isle achievement, so obviously I had to hang out with her and play a little game. Yeah, I know a lot of Animal Crossing build videos are super focused and whip out all these impressive mind-blowing decorating tips, but I'm obviously not on that level. This is how I play the game, and I swear I can almost never just build something without interruptions or distractions. Mad respect to anyone who can. But yeah, okay, finally I do get back to finishing up the orchard here. I decided to make 2 rows and include 2 of each fruit tree type. That feels like enough to be functional but not take up too huge of a space. I thought that I was sick of the wooden in-game pathing after my last orchard, but I do think it will work back here for the farm space. I definitely wanted to have like one clear path that leads all the way back to the orchard, and I had to experiment to figure out how the centering would work, but I got there eventually. I did end up rearranging things a couple of times, and I decided to use the orange trees more as a decorative entrance piece to the orchard because that's my native fruit and I have a lot of them all over the island as a recurring motif for the honey cake vibe. I spent kind of a lot of time on this, trying to figure out what would look best here. It was a lot of trial and error, but it was worth it, and I'm glad I started at the back with the orchard. I don't know why, but I was just really particular about how I wanted the orchard to look and feel. And so by making sure that I had that squared away and that I was satisfied with it, it made it easier to figure out how to use the remaining space to set up the crops and the rest of the farm. When I'm recording or streaming, sometimes I feel this weird pressure to do things fast or get things right the first time, but let's just keep everything honest here. If it takes a bunch of tries to get something right, that's totally fine. One of the affirmations I have written on my craft room wall is actually savor the process. Because I have to remind myself not to get obsessed with the end product and just enjoy all the failures and experimentation that are an important part of the creative process. So I think I'm pretty settled on this orchard design, and eventually I need to think through how I want to transition this into a secluded little pathway that leads to Red's secret beach. But that's good for now. Next, I need to focus on the entrance to Plucky's farm and what the whole farm area is actually going to look like. So while I experiment here and think through how this build is going to go, let's talk more about the Dorito effect and the impact of farming practices on flavor. Flavor dilution and a decrease in the nutritional content of food applies to crops just as much as it does to livestock. Following food shortages during the worldwide Great Depression of the 1930s, governments poured into research to develop hybrid seeds that would produce higher yields, crops with more harvestable plants. You know, like when you water every day in Animal Crossing, you get more crops on the plant. These efforts started in Mexico, spread to India, and eventually transformed global agricultural processes in a movement known as the Green Revolution. On the surface, the increase in food production seems like a positive shift, but it isn't without consequence. These high-yield methods rely heavily on pesticides, chemical fertilizers, and intensive irrigation that has resulted in damages to ecosystems, pollution, water scarcity, and soil degradation. It also results in plants that have higher water content and less nutritional value, and notably, less flavor. On the surface, that doesn't seem like a bad thing. Produce more food and make food more better. But the issue with this, Schatzker argues, is that flavor can be deceptive. There is a profoundly complicated relationship that our senses have to food. Studies of animal eating habits indicate there are a multitude of subtle neurochemical interactions that happen with the smell and taste that relate to an instinctive nutritional wisdom. Something in our bodies responds to nature and tells us what to eat, even if we don't consciously understand it. Living things develop cravings and taste related to the chemical makeup of what our bodies need. The preponderance of artificial flavors that characterize the foods that are available to most consumers today undermines our instincts. It gives our bodies the false sense that we are receiving a diversity of food in our diet, our body's natural instinct to obtain diverse nutritional content. So when I eat pizza-flavored Pringles, it feels like maybe I did get cheese and tomato sauce and bread and veggies, but no, I didn't eat that. I ate Pringles. Pringles with pizza flavoring. The consumer market for food is not only potentially damaging to our environment, but has fundamentally changed our natural relationship with food. And if this is starting to freak you out, I promise, it's going in a more positive direction. These are just the things I learned in Schatzker's book, and that I'm thinking of figuring out how to apply to my island. Thanks for going down this nerd hole with me. The same companies that make the additives and flavorings that go into all our modern food products also provide the additives and flavorings that go into feed for livestock. Additives are put into feed that convince the animals to develop a taste for a diet that isn't actually healthy. It disrupts their instinctive nutritional wisdom in order to supply them a diet that maintains the industrial model of livestock that rapidly grow large to be slaughtered as young as possible. Again, it's about producing more meat more fast. Those same additives are the things that make us crave so-called junk foods that don't necessarily fulfill our nutritional needs. And this is not me grandstanding saying that everybody should only eat healthy food all the time. Like, I will get down on some s'mores Pop-Tarts and a Diet Coke. Don't try to stop me. But I think at least having some awareness of the science and the economic practices behind all of this does kind of shape the way I approach food and the way I feel about agriculture generally. At this point, I feel like it's totally understandable if people have already clicked away from this video. Me rambling about the things I learned about from the last book I read might not be the thing that everyone wants or expects from an Animal Crossing build video. But if you've watched any of the other videos in my series, you know that I'm a lifelong learner. And part of what I want to do with my island is link it to that passion. And that includes sprinkling in the tidbits of things that I'm researching, just for fun. And I promise I'm not just trying to be an alarmist or a bummer about this stuff. Quite the contrary. I want to take the things I learn and apply them in a positive thinking, action-oriented way. And I just felt like it all tied in so perfectly to the joys I felt building this farm for my forever island. I wanted the farm to be functional, as in it produces a decent renewable amount of all the crops that I might need for cooking. But it can also be cozy and aesthetic because I've moved past the point of needing the huge crop fields I had before to earn bells and chase certain Nook Mile achievements. This is our small community farm. Not for profit, not for glory, just enough to provide for Honeycake's community and provide a scenic space where everyone can get their hands dirty and connect to the source of where our food comes from. There's definitely a wish fulfillment element to this. I mean, one of the appeals of this game is that it's a play space for building whatever whimsical, idyllic fantasy life we want to escape to. And for me, it's very therapeutic to imagine a world where I am successful at taking care of plants. Like, any plants. I remember gardening with my mom when I was young, and today I'm just so impressed that she was able to have the energy to work full-time and raise kids and still tend to her garden, because I literally cannot imagine. You know, it's hard out here. I don't think I've ever kept a plant alive in adulthood, and I've even bought those houseplants that they say are indestructible, perfect for offices, etc. And let me tell you, they all died. I'm sorry, plants. So at this point in building the farm, I had kind of figured out the structure of the dirt patches for each of the different crops. But I was also getting a little bit of creativity fatigue. I knew that I needed to sleep on it and come back to it the next day. But I also knew that I wanted to go ahead and put in an incline to connect the farm to the cliff region. I had some vague notion that it made sense to connect the school and the farm. Like, you could learn about agricultural sciences at the school and then take a little field trip to actually go and work on the farm. So I did a bit of terraforming, talked to Tom Nook, and went ahead and paid off Lloyd so that the incline would be in place the next time I logged on to play. On the next day, Isabel announced that our newest villager, Bud, had arrived on the island. We found Bud on the villager hunt in my last video to replace our dear beloved troublemaker Kyle, so I'll definitely have to greet him before I get back to work on the farm. I picked out a much more thematically appropriate outfit for today, and I was definitely shocked by how bright yellow Bud's house is. It doesn't fit my vision exactly, but we can deal with that later. Before I had a chance to introduce myself to Bud, I got distracted by Gruff. I was kind of hoping maybe he wanted to move. I do love Gruff, but I guess I'm just already fiending for another villager hunt. But Gruff didn't want to move, he just wanted to hang out, so obviously I had to do that. Then it was time to formally welcome Bud to the island. I see that he has a fun beachy interior, a lot like Plucky's house. A lot of people commented really positive things about Bud on the last video, so I'm excited to get to know him and see how he fits in on the island. One thing I enjoy about playing in real time with my decorating is just revisiting things with fresh eyes on the next day. I think when I'm deep in a build, I go into kind of a liminal flow state and I honestly forget what I even built. So after looking again at the transition from my house across the diagonal Zen bridge to Butch's garage and Plucky's yard from yesterday, I can definitely see how the whole picture of the island is steadily coming together. And I'm loving all of these spring cleaning changes. This back corner of my island has honestly given me so much trouble from day one. I have changed it around a lot, but I think I'm finally settled. The incline is complete, and I can also start brainstorming how the farm will transition into the school area. Oh look, a terrifying looking tourist is checking out our museum. But anyway, let's get back to building the farm. I've got all of our crop variations in the ground now, and off camera I laid out a bunch of items on the beach that I think might work for decorating the farm. I've got 6 of each crop, so the baseline functionality of the farm is there. Everything else is just figuring out which decorative touches to add to make it cozy without disrupting the actual access of the crop fields. I will say that building my island in tandem with reading the Dorito effect has given me some new inspiration. There's a community garden in my neighborhood, and I want to reach out and see how I can be involved. If I'm in charge of the plants, it's not going to work out, okay? But if someone else is the head honcho on the project, I'd be more than happy to chip in my labor and do the grunt work of helping things grow. And that's kind of what I envision for Honeycake too. Plucky is the crop whisperer. She has the talent for running the farm. But in my headcanon, everyone contributes a certain number of hours to helping out on the farm. And in exchange, they get access to fresh and organic ingredients for their cooking. Like, we can't all be farmers. It's unrealistic to think that everyone should just be producing all of their own food. There's nothing intrinsically wrong with specialized or industrial farms because having certain sectors of an economy focus on agriculture means that we can contribute our talents to other beautiful aspects of society, like making art, producing knowledge, taking care of people, and having access to a variety of other goods and services. But I do think it would be good for all of us to find small ways to be a little more connected to where our food really comes from. Like, I'm reminded of a video that went viral a while back of the lady with lemon trees in her yard, and she didn't realize she could just eat the lemons straight from the tree. She thought the lemons at the grocery store had something done to them to make them safe to eat. And the internet roasted her like the internet does, but I don't think it's really that surprising. Too many of us lack a lot of education about where food comes from and what food even does to our bodies. It's not really a focus in school. A lot of people live nowhere near a farm, and a lot of what we know just comes from advertising and what we see on shelves at the grocery store. I remember in elementary school, we had like a school-wide science exhibit where every grade level was responsible for making and hosting these little interactive exhibits on whatever topic we were learning. And then once you did your shift in your own classroom, you could take a turn visiting other classrooms and other grade levels and experiencing their topics. It was actually a pretty cool thing for a school to do, really. But I was in 2nd grade at the time, and I remember our topic was the food pyramid and nutrition. And we had so much fun making our little presentations, and we had all these different games and activities that we got to walk other students through. But what's funny about that now is that the food pyramid isn't even the same. The food pyramid that I learned in school, the conventional wisdom about nutrition, was a complete fabrication that was based less on nutritional research and more on what different industry lobbyists had convinced the FDA to prioritize when recommending daily servings. Like, even when food education was made a priority in public schools, it still couldn't be divorced from consumerism and marketing. The food pyramid I learned in school isn't even around anymore. There's a reason that farm to table and farm fresh have become marketing buzzwords. We don't understand all the complexities of food and agriculture in our daily lives, but there is something in us that craves to be more closely connected to the production of the food we eat. Honeycake is a fictional video game paradise, and I love that I have this outlet. But weirdly, it also kind of inspires me for things I want to experience in my real life too. Like, it's not feasible for me to think I can grow all my own food, or even that I could buy and cook only organic and all natural food. Like, I don't have access to that. It's not in my budget or in my schedule. And I think that's true for most people, and there's absolutely no shame in it. But maybe I can chip in at the community garden, or I can visit a U-Pick orchard from time to time. Baby steps surely have to be better than no steps at all. Having access to fresh ingredients is important to me on Honeycake because in real life I'm very aware of the struggle of food deserts. I live in a major metropolitan area, which seems like you would have access to everything. But there are definitely neighborhoods where people don't have ready access to fresh food or thoroughly stocked grocery stores. Sometimes we have to drive pretty far to get certain foods, especially high-quality foods, and not everyone has access to reliable transportation. Another contributing factor to additives and flavorings in food is the need to increase the shelf life of foods. Farms are removed from where most people live, so farming practices favor hybrids and preservatives that allow food to travel further and sit on store shelves for longer before they're actually consumed. And don't get me wrong, preservatives are a good thing. I am begging you not to buy into raw milk rhetoric. They make safe food more accessible to more people. But there is the unintended consequence that it becomes harder to access foods that are fresh and more nutritionally dense. And that struggle is exacerbated in impoverished communities. Access to quality food is sadly confined by economic status. And on Honeycake, I want everyone to have equal access. If you dig deep enough into the reality of food processing in the 21st century, it can be unnerving. But the takeaway from this information shouldn't send people into a complete panic. I really hope that's not what I'm conveying. Unfortunately, there are a lot of nutrition and lifestyle influencers right now that claim to promote clean eating or eating the diets of our ancestors, whatever that means, but are actually just using alarmist language to spread misinformation and food-shaming vitriol. This particular brand of food science misinformation generally involves cherry-picking a few isolated conclusions from various studies and then applying them blindly and dogmatically to eating practices. For example, the latest food marketing hook is protein. Protein, grr, you need more protein, all the protein. And protein is extremely important. Proteins are the building blocks of our cells, and healthy protein intake is necessary for repairing cells and building new ones. But you can't just take that basic piece of nutritional wisdom and let that become the laser focus of your diet. Brands are capitalizing on people's vague awareness that they should perhaps increase their daily protein intake and just artificially tossing it into products they were already selling. Protein waffles, protein cereal, protein water? People convince themselves they're doing something good for their bodies by buying products that have a "now with more protein" label on them. But it's divorced from a robust understanding of dietary diversity. And this trend of taking an isolated piece of nutrition information as a hard and fast truth has propelled misguided nutrition trends for decades. In the 90s, it was all about fat-free, skim milk, low-fat yogurt, fat-free everything. Fats are calorically dense, and a lot of diets focus on simply reducing calorie intake. But our bodies need fats to cushion organs and carry essential fat-soluble nutrients. At one point, there was a study that indicated that antioxidant processes in the body could help prevent disease, and brands were keen to isolate so-called antioxidants in pill form so that they could just toss it in the ingredient list of whatever products they were already selling and say, "Oh look, how healthy, it's got antioxidants." When high cholesterol was becoming a health concern and people looked at the cholesterol level in eggs, there were people who said, well, that's it. No more eggs. Eggs are just cholesterol bombs. The problem with all of these attempts to commodify or min-max nutritional wisdom is that food is deeply, profoundly complicated. You can't just take a few scattered findings about the chemical reactions that happen when our bodies process food and then try to bottle and market those specific things. The number of chemical reactions and biological processes that impact what we need, what we crave, how our bodies grow and thrive is well beyond the scope of what has been studied in depth. You can't just hack food. You can't just take all the things that one study said were good and try to jam them into one super drink. We get diverse things from foods by eating diverse foods. Research that would truly allow for in-depth studies of just how deep the nutrition rabbit hole really goes rarely get funded or pursued because they're not really profitable. Brands can't sell nuance and curiosity. Brands sell buzzwords, simple reductionist truths, and instant gratification. And we as consumers, overwhelmed with all the different messages we receive from marketing and influencers, don't always have the mental real estate to be discerning about what is good to eat. We can be constrained by time and budgets and mental fatigue. We don't always have the resources, the knowledge, or the wherewithal to keep a robust pantry of whole, fresh ingredients, or cook rich and detailed meals. It's hard out here, and so sometimes we just look for the easy truths or the easy ways to insert nutrition into our diet. So in my imaginary escape of honey cake, the residents have the time to cultivate food, to share in the workload of harvesting and cooking, to fill their plates with variety. Everyone contributes and everyone shares equally in the production of food here. It's not about producing a lot or producing fast. It's about producing things that are delicious and taking care of everyone in the community. It's a cutesy representation of some of the things I'm still learning about food and the baby steps I want to take in connecting with that. A lot of the stuff in this video feels like kind of a reach for me. I'm like not a health nut by any constraint. But I am a human being, and I just think it's cool to like learn about things and reflect on things. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. I am not a diet purist in any sense. I'm just a girl who likes reading and learning, and the Dorito effect and all the subsequent research it inspired me to look into gave me some new perspectives to consider on my relationship with food and how to make positive choices with eating in a consumer landscape that promotes food waste, flavor dilution, and questionable farming ethics. I don't think anyone should obsess or overanalyze their diet, or become so paranoid about processed foods that they become consumed with guilt or a feeling of powerlessness, or worse, that they get duped into buying some hacky supplement scam. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. The best book I ever read that had a positive impact on my eating habits was Eat, Drink, and Be Healthy. I found this my senior year of college when I was super stressed trying to complete all my credits and working full-time to pay rent. I had very little money and even less time or energy, so I was basically living on bagels with butter and frozen pizza. I felt like garbage. What I loved about this book was its reverence for nuance. It wasn't some fad diet with 6 simple steps or some biohacking manifesto about how to get maximum nutrient gains. It was a measured presentation of various studies on nutritional wisdom, with the caveat that no one nutrition hack was some absolute truth. It gave the simple guidance of balancing protein, carbs, and fats to the best of your ability, striving for color variety on your plate, eating whole foods when you can, drinking water, and above all, having variety. The truth is, our bodies are always changing, and we don't actually know all the molecular complexities of how we use food. So the best we can do for ourselves is to incorporate variety as much as possible and just listen to our bodies. Enjoy food, don't be too hard on yourself. Asking questions and doing these thought experiments is a fun thing I can play with as I build lore and storytelling for my Animal Crossing island. It makes me happy to think about my relaxing island as a place where food and farming are explored and celebrated. None of my sweet angel baby villagers will be keeping food diaries or counting calories or nutrition maxing, but all of them will contribute to taking care of Plucky's farm, so that they can be a part of the loving process of connecting with nature and cultivating food. No one's getting shamed if they want to enjoy a high-sugar processed snacky from the community vending machine, because on Honey Cake, everyone is allowed to listen to their bodies and not overthink their food choices, because their nutritional needs are being met, and no one is missing out on the joy of snackies. As a final touch for today's build, I went through and added flowers to fill in the gaps between trees in my orchard. This technique is not just for looks, but for functionality too. Because when you shake the trees, they can't fall to the side if there's flowers there. So all the fruit drops in a neat row for easy harvesting. I initially went through and used a bunch of different colored flowers, like I had in my previous orchard, but I decided that was a little too busy, so I changed it around to just white cosmos, and I like this a lot better. There's already so much color and visual interest in the farm, so I don't want the flowers to take that over the top. I started laying down more pathing so that eventually I can come back and fill in this back beach rock with something cute. And I started filling in trees so that I can make a secret path to Red's fraudulent art market. I finally feel like the flow of this back corner is starting to make sense and make me happy. I also recreated more or less the same dining area that I had on my old farm. I guess I forgot to record the actual building of it. Like I said, sometimes I just get into a sudden flow state. But here's some footage of the next day where you can see the finished area. I'm honestly just so happy with how this whole build went. I think this might be my new favorite part of the island. It has the perfect balance of functionality, aesthetics, and storytelling that I was hoping for. I definitely wanted to include a kitchen and prep space for the fruit and veggie harvest, which I think turned out very pretty. It is very cute to me to imagine all the villagers cooking meals together. All of them can share farm-fresh meals together at this cute little beach rock dining area, enjoying a diversity of flavors and ingredients, and celebrating the communal ritual of cooking and eating together. How much easier would it be for us to eat fresh meals every day if we could share the burden of meal prep with others? That's like probably the most beautiful thing about living in a commune. I'm just lucky my partner's really good at cooking because I do struggle. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed hanging out with me for this cozy build and for my learning journey about community farming. I hope you'll join me next time as we continue to revitalize my island for spring. We've got to build our school, our museum entrance, our gardening society, and so much more. So be sure to subscribe if you want to be notified for the next one. I also play live on my Twitch channel. The link for that will be in the description. I'll be back soon with more adventures on honey cake and beyond. So until then, take it easy, everyone.